Hello everyone. This week we'll be working on Lab 2. The document for Lab 2 can be found under Week 3 activities. Alright, this is the one. Just retrieve the document. And the lab this week will be focusing on control structure, arithmetic expression and operators. As usual, we have 3 past tasks, 2.1, past task 2.2 and past task 2.3. Again, in this week lab, we do have a credit task. This credit task is optional, but if you are aiming for a credit and above in this unit, then make sure you attempt the credit task for this week as well. Now, some of you may have attempted the credit task for last week in lab 1, and if you are one of them but you have yet to complete credit task 1.1 for lab 1, my advice to you is to stop your credit task for lab 1 and start working on your past task. Alright, because past tasks are the tasks that are required for you to pass this unit. The priority should be given to your past task every single week. Okay, you have to make sure you complete the past task for every single week before you work on your credit task, because it is important for you to secure a pass first, okay, before aiming for a higher grade. Now, before you start your lab 2, I would like you to go back to week 3 activities and download these particular short exercises for you to complete before you start your lab 2. The end of these exercises is to actually get you to understand the sequence of execution when a program is run. Okay, I guess this is quite important to help you to understand how control structure works in this particular topic. Alright, so let's look at the first exercise. Assume that the edge has the value of 0. List the actions the computer executes when it runs the following code. So what you need to do here is that you run every single statement one by one. Every single statement that you run, you need to kind of explain the action down here, okay, for every single statement. So when we start this program, the first statement is actually a put statement. That's why we explain the action here. Okay, so you might want to put down as a result of this action, we will see an output on the screen that shows message 0, for instance. Okay, so once this statement is done, we will move on to the next statement, and guess what, we have a loop structure here. So we try to explain here what happened in this loop structure is that we first evaluate a condition, and it is actually a condition whereby we are comparing the value of variable h, whether it's smaller than 5, right? So this is what we explain here, and the outcome is actually true. Now, when the condition is true for a loop structure, what do? We have to go into the loop. Okay, this is the loop. So that's why the next action is actually to explain that our execution will actually jumps into the while loop. Alright, then when we are in the loop, the next thing that is going to happen, the next action is actually a puts. So we might want to explain something similar to the first action, except that this time around we are showing message 1. Okay, similarly you might want to put a note here saying that this is the second output that we are seeing from this program so far. Is that fine? Alright, so after this statement, then you will obviously move on to the next statement and try to explain what happened here. Okay, then you will hit the end of the loop. That's why the next statement here is that the loop returns to the top of the loop, which is over here. So you will probably find that the next course of action will be similar to the second row, okay, because we are now, the execution is back right here. That's why you find that this explanation is similar to this one. Okay, except that the value of h has now changed to 1, but still 1 less than 5 is still true, and therefore we will repeat all this again. Okay, so you can see that you probably will have to repeat this, copy paste this another few more times before you hit the condition where this is false, and the execution will then have to break from this loop. Okay, when you break from the loop, you still have one more statement to run. So that's how you complete this exercise. The second one is pretty similar. Alright, so when you get this done, you're ready to actually start lab task for this week. Now let's get back to our first past task for lab 2, past task 2.1. This program requires you to apply both if-else structure, selection structure, which is if-else, as well as repetition structure, loop. So just follow the steps here. Step 1, prompt a message, please enter your name and assign the input into a variable. I believe every one of you have done something similar in past task 1.2. Remember, you ask user to enter their name as well as their family name. So I think you should have no issue completing step 1. Okay, let's move on to step 2. Now based on your input from step 1, if the name from step 1 is equal to your name or your tutor name, then output that name is an awesome name. Otherwise, print or display that name is a silly name. So in this case, we need a selection structure and if-else structure. Okay, let me help you to set out an if-else structure. If, else, and this is a basic structure for selection structure. So your conditions should be written here in this bracket. So the first thing that you need to do is to fill in the expression here, the condition. And it depends on the way you write down this condition. It will produce either a true or false when the program is executed. So in case this expression or this condition produces a true, the execution will then run all the statements that you have between if and else and skip all the statements under else and and. On the other hand, if the condition produces a false, the execution should then skip everything between if and else and execute everything between else and and. So in this case, we have two possible output. The first one is that name is an awesome name. Okay, one possible output. The other possible output is that that name is a silly name. So which message to show depends on the condition that you put down here. So obviously in this case, we have asked user to enter their name here. Okay, I leave this part to you. The first part, step 1, you get the input, get user to enter their name. Now based on the name, then you will have to compare the value input by the user, which obviously you have stored in a variable, right? Now you have to check the variable, the value in that variable, whether the value is equal to your name. So the operator to check for equality is two equal signs. Okay, so you can have a variable here, let's say x, then you can compare the value sitting in this variable to see whether it is equal to a certain value. So you may be comparing two variables, x and y. X and y are your variables. By writing this condition, you are checking whether the value of x is equal to the value of y. You can also compare two constant, meaning two number, at equals to 5. Okay, if this is the condition, then it will produce a false because this value at is not equal to 5. Similarly, you can compare two string, let's say hello, with a variable. In this case, we are checking whether the value in x is hello or not. So this is the one that is applicable to our case here because we are checking on a string. The input from step 1 is a string. Okay, so you need something like this. Now it depends on how you want to put down your condition. there are more than one way of doing this program. For example, I can check the variable, whatever the variable that you use to store the input from the user, right? I check whether it is equal to my name. That's how I do it. If this is the condition, then the put statements that I need to write here will be whatever name from the input is an awesome name. Okay, then the puts that I need under the else, meaning if the input is not equal to my name, I would like to display that name, whatever the name is a silly name. Alright. However, if I choose to write my condition the other way around, not equal to my name, since I know the condition is checking on the variable, whether the value of the variable is not equal to my name, if I check it is not equal to my name and I get a true, it means that the value in that variable is not this string. So in that case, I will have to write my condition or puts this way. So it depends on how you put down your condition. That will determine what put statement to write here. Okay, because the way you put down your condition will determine the result of this condition. Okay, but as long as you know if the condition is true, this is the statement that the program will be running. Else, the program will be running the statements under the else. Alright, so that is if-else structure. So I leave it to you on how you want to write your condition. But again, this is a simple if-else. As you can see, there are few ways to write the if-else statement and yet produce exactly the same output, meaning the program will still behave exactly the same, even though there are few ways to write this simple if-else structure. The next requirement of this program is that you are supposed to repeat this word silly for 10 times, because at the moment the puts statement will only print this string with silly appears one time in this display, in this message. Now if you want to see this word for 10 times, you have to either write this 10 times or you get a loop to help you. Okay, in this case we only wish to repeat this particular word and not the entire string. So what you need to do first is to break this string to separate this word from the entire string, meaning you just have to create another puts statement, print statement. Okay, so keep the first one is r, and this is the word that we would like to repeat 10 times. So you have to make it an independent string. Obviously, if we wish to keep the same display in one line, we should not use puts in this case for the first and second statement, because puts will get the cursor to go down. Alright, so I need print. Print will keep the cursor to stay on the same line, and for that reason I will still see exactly the same output if I were to run the program now. Got it? So your job is to get a loop structure to repeat this particular statement. Only this one you repeat 10 times, and the other two you just have to display them one time. So as a result, you will get the name is silly 10 times. So I leave it to you to construct the loop structure. In fact, you can just follow these steps. You can choose any one of the loop structure available in Ruby. There are many. Okay, all of them can help you to achieve your goal of repeating this statement 10 times. Alright, that's it for task 1. Please get it done before you move on to task 2.